If I ever want to just feel bad about myself, oh, Dean took his turn. I can see he took his turn.
You know what? You take your turn, and I'm going to get this next thing ready. That's actually perfect. BJ from Board Game Gumbo. I've got my guest here, Keith Law, baseball and board game writer. That's why he's on the show. And we're talking spicy hot games. One of those is a game that I have opinions, but these are not valid opinions at all. Keith, tell us about Earth. Earth is everywhere, by the way. It was all over BGG.Spring.
I believe it. It is. And it is on Board Game Arena for folks who
Evan, really? J.R.R.
Zolkin? Oh, that's really
really
bad. That's really bad. I am sentencing you to mortar. So I've described Earth for people as kind of Wingspan squared, which is a little bit of a pun because if you've seen Earth, also you are building a 4x4 tableau of cards too. So it's actually a square.
I get jokes. I like it.
Yes, yeah, I have jokes. I'm a dad. People, my wife is always like, "That's a bad dad joke," or sometimes my daughter says that to me, and I'm like, "I'm a dad. This checks out." Right? It's actually part of the job description.
It is.
So Earth is, I really like Earth. I gave it a really glowing review on Paste about 3-4 weeks ago. It is a great game for folks who like Wingspan and just want more of that and want a game that does more of the things that Wingspan does well. Which is not to say I think it's better than Wingspan. I think it is more of, Wingspan's been out for several years. There's a couple of great expansions for it. But I think a lot of folks have played enough Wingspan that they feel like, I'm ready for something different. And Earth brings that same experience, but does a lot more of it. And I think it's about a half grade up in complexity. I tend to think in sort of the grades the way I scout players. And to me, this, I think of full grades and half grades. This is about a half grade up. This is not a super complex.
It's a 5-tool player?
This is, I don't know, is Earth a 5-tool player? It's definitely a 4-tool player.
It goes to 4, or it goes to 5, sorry.
Does it hit for average?
So what Earth
we broke him,
does,
Steve. He went blue screen there for a second.
He did.
You have too many. There's too many jokes, references. Verla taking us seriously.
You went to saber. You were going for the sabermetrics. I could see the sabermetrics dad joke coming in there.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Earth's probably maybe a little higher on the OPS.
He was working on it.
Yes, there's a launch angle joke in here somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've got Earth for $4. $4 Earth. I need it in my utility fielder. $4. Come on, let this through so we get in this draft, please.
So for folks who haven't played Earth, you are building a tableau it's rather than the 3 distinct rows of bird cards that you play in Wingspan. You are playing cards that will show flora and fauna and some landscape cards to your tableau. 4x4. So you're going to play 16 cards over the course of the game, or up to 16 cards. When somebody's played their 16th card, that triggers end game. And lots of these cards have different actions and then interactions. You can build lots of chains of bonuses so that when anyone takes a specific master action on their turn, you might get to activate a whole bunch of your cards. There, you can actually see 3 of the actions right there, which I think is plant, grow, and water. That might be correct. Might not be correct, but there's 4 potential actions. And on everyone's turn, whatever master action they take, you then activate every one of your cards that has that color on it, showing that you can take that particular action. There are also various public and private objectives you're trying to achieve. There are end game bonuses. It's all of the it is all of the things again that we like about Wingspan, or a lot of games like this that have that various way you're building something, whether it's a tableau or an engine of some sort, and trying to meet a number of objectives to get points in lots of different ways by the end of the game. I mean, the point totals in this tend to run into several hundred, but it's an extremely satisfying experience. And that's what I find that people tell me when I introduce Wingspan to them. We've played it with a bunch of first timers, and even when they don't necessarily score well, everyone I've ever played that with will say at the end, I really like that, because they feel like they did something. And that's one of the things I just really enjoy about board gaming myself as a hobby. I don't usually care if I win. It's much more, did I enjoy it? Did I feel challenged by what I was doing? And Earth is one of those games that's really rich, despite not, I think on BGG, they don't rate it as particularly complicated or complex, but it's meaty. There's a lot to it. And it looks, you can see from the photos here, this game looks great. I think I was saying before we were on the show, I saw a prototype at PAX Unplugged at the Inside Up booth. So that's a year and a half ago or so, and it has come a long way. And just looks fantastic. Looks fantastic on the table. Looks fantastic on BGA, actually. I really like how that looks. I wish I had a larger monitor to be able to get it all in. I end up zooming in and out quite a bit when trying to play it online.
You do have to scroll a lot on BGA when you're playing it. Yeah.
Especially to see if you want to see what anybody else is doing. That's the one thing. But I mean, that's true of a lot of games, actually, where, God, I was playing Applejack at one point. I was like, I have to look down and see what's going on. What is happening? Where's mine? I mean, that's just the hazard of playing online. Nothing will ever beat the tabletop. I play games online because I just love games, but I will always choose to play at a tabletop. Or here it's a tabletop, it's a coffee table, it's the floor. It is wherever you want to play a game, that's fine. I'm down. I don't really care what the surface is.
So I was telling you before the show in the green room that my problem with playing it on BGA before I learned it, sometimes I can pick up a game. This one has so many prompts that I just got a little bit annoyed because not with the game itself, the fact that I didn't know what the prompts are asking me for.
Right.
So, but that tells me that there must be a lot going on even when it's not your turn. And I love games like that. Is that a factor with Earth?
Yes, you're never bored. And isn't that I feel like I followed those guys on Instagram, the Never Bored Gaming. This feels like a game for them, right? They're never bored. You're never bored. You're never not doing something. It will, on everyone else's turn, you should have something to do, something to activate. And to me, that is a great game design. I know not every game can do that, but I really enjoy that, where I'm always getting something based on the action that you took. And so I'm always involved and even hoping you do one thing or thinking, all right, if Steve's going to take the grow action, then I do this and this and this. Oh, wait, if Verla takes the water action, I'm doing this and this and this. So you're constantly engaged. And I love a game that is like that just gets me. You're always thinking about possibilities, always planning ahead just a little bit. I'm not a chess player. I don't need to plan ahead 15 moves, but just to constantly keep me there. And so that no one is thinking, where's my phone? Or I need to go get a beer or something. No. I'm in the game. There's plenty of time for the beer afterwards.
Right. I remember the first time I played Scythe, and there may be games before that because I've been playing games I just don't remember when. But I remember the first time I felt that feeling was when in Scythe, and I'm getting taught the game, and they said, okay, and now you can get the benefit because I took this action. And I remember going, holy cow, what an awesome feeling. Well, I kind of planned this out. I knew you were going to do something, and I upgraded that part of my board. That was such a good feeling. I think Jamie calls it a positive feedback loop that he wanted to create, where you always felt like you weren't ever getting a bad turn. You're always getting a good turn because you're doing
Jamie's
stuff
very
on
smart.
yours.
He's very, very smart. I think I actually quoted him at one point in the Inside Game. Which
really?
Was a nice bit of my worlds coming together. Something he'd written on one of his blogs at one point. Jamie's games. I'm actually not the biggest Scythe fan, but I respect the design, and Jamie just does incredible work.
Yep.
You've played both on BGA and on the table, you said, for this, right, Keith?
Yes.
Okay. I've only played it on BGA once or twice with you and Kelly, and once with Dean, actually, before we did an episode of Meepletown, and that was our review with it. And it was actually something that was good that we came across. I think it was Paul Grogan said, play your first game out loud. So all of your choices as you're thinking through for like a practice game, if you're the kind of person who could say, speak it out loud, because you don't know the cards yet, you're not thinking about all of that.
No, and there's a lot of
the idea of speaking it out loud helped wrap my head around a lot of the moving parts. I think you're right. It's not heavy, but there are lots of gears.
Yes, absolutely. To me, which I think that's where we get a little bit in the weeds a little bit, because I tend to think I am writing board game stuff for my baseball audience a lot of the time. And so I try not to make assumptions I don't assume my readership of any of my board game stuff are hardcore board gamers. Some of them are there, but it's not everybody.
I did not know that.
Oh, I get notes from people, scouts, people in front offices. I'll never forget going to see a kid, Aiden Weaver, who's now in the bullpen at Duke. He didn't sign out of high school. And a scout is standing there, says to me, I think it was Azul. And he said, My wife and I really like Azul. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
It was great, right? You just love those. They're not, he's not a board. I don't believe I've talked to him since. Like, he's not a hardcore board game or anything. So I've always got to assume I'm reaching, I guess, the lay audience, right? The people who don't necessarily know our terminology, or and I use try to use the right terms, but also put them in context so people can understand. And Earth is one of those games. If you put this on the table and play it with somebody who play it with one of those like Monopoly people, they're going to say, "What do you mean this isn't complex? This game is insane.
Yeah.
There's 80 parts. I need to learn a new language of icons. Are these hieroglyphs?" Like,
correct.
That is so. And I wonder if we're doing a disservice by saying this game isn't that complex. I try to put it in the proper context and sort of the scale of board games. It's not like a Vita Lacerda game in terms of complexity, but we all need to remember most people will look at Earth and say, that's really complicated, because it kind of is. If you haven't played a lot of games, especially if you haven't played Wingspan, right? Earth is going to look crazy. It looks going to, or its ilk, right? Earth is going to look like a really busy, involved game where I have to learn a lot of things. And you might lose people at that point, which, to me, I'm not one of those folks who denigrates gateway games. I love gateway games. I love them to play them myself, and I love them because they're a great way for me to introduce people to the hobby. But we should all kind of keep in mind that Earth is one of those where, Stevie, the point you just made, it's not super complicated, but there are a lot of gears here. And for some people, that's going to seem very intimidating.
Some nice words from Carlos for you there, Keith. This is so cool. I'm geeking out.
Thank you, Carlos.
Recommended Keith's book so many times. I made my kid read it. What were you going to say, Steve?
Wait, did Carlos also make his kid log it and start
did you make him write
a spreadsheet about having read it? I think you've got a real good point here about it being complex. And I think something that a lot of gamers might like about it that is complex, that's new, is the idea that when you're building that tableau is kind of freeform. It is limited to the 16, the 4x4, but you can build up or to the side, or in linear and vertical. And that, I think, would probably take some people who are gamers and think, oh, I like that. That's new to me. But you add that to somebody who's playing this for the first time, and they're saying, you mean I'm going to have to move all of these cards to make room for more stuff? And the on the table stuff, I need
a bigger table.
I need a bigger table, or I need to have known that I was going to go in this direction, because now I have to slide these things that are balancing on the cards over to the left to make room for this tableau to grow.
I think folks who are watching this, who've played a bunch of games, a bunch of these types of games that we're talking about, will look at Earth and say, I can figure this out. I get this. Like I said, for first timer, this is not one I'm going to break out. We're having a big game night this weekend, actually. I'll have this in the house. I have it in the house if anybody wants to play it, for sure. It's not one I'm going to immediately bring out. We haven't figured, hold on. You're not in the count. Right. We have carefully calibrated the food.
Right.
So.